Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're exploring the work of Charles Sanders Peirce. And remember, it's pronounced Peirce.
A really foundational figure.
Absolutely. So for you, our listener, we're going to pull out the key ideas, some of the really core insights from his philosophy.
Yeah, without getting bogged down, his work is vast, covers logic, signs, how we even think about knowing things.
Our mission then is really to give you the essence, maybe some surprising bits too, of Peirce's thought.
And we'll try to make it clear how he still influences philosophy today.
Okay, let's start where he made some big waves challenging the giants. He went right after Descartes, didn't he? Specifically, the whole idea of starting with doubt.
He really did. In some consequences of Four Incapacities, he basically argues, look, starting with complete doubt, it's just not how we work. It's almost artificial.
You mean we can't just decide to doubt everything we believe?
Exactly. Peirce said we always begin with what he called our prejudices, just the beliefs we already have. You can't simply dismiss them with a philosophical command.
So that Cartesian idea of clear and distinct ideas being the ultimate sign of truth, Peirce wasn't buying it.
Not really. He felt it was too subjective. And he pointed out, didn't Descartes kind of end up believing pretty much what he started with, despite the doubt exercise?
Good point. It suggests the doubt wasn't maybe as radical as claimed.
Peirce saw it as a bit of self-deception, maybe. That genuine doubt arises from specific problems, not just a general decision to doubt.
Okay, so starting from that critique, Peirce laid out some pretty counterintuitive ideas about our own minds, these incapacities.
Yes, fundamental challenges to how we think about thinking. First, he claimed we have no power of introspection.
Whoa, that sounds wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I know what I'm thinking or feeling directly.
Right, but Peirce's argument is subtle. He's saying all knowledge of our internal world isn't direct access. It's actually based on reasoning, hypothesizing from external facts.
So I observe myself acting surprised, and then I infer I am surprised, like figuring it out from the outside in.
Sort of, yes. It's an inference based on observing our interactions and reactions in the world. Second, he argued no power of intuition in the sense of grasping truth directly without prior steps.
Meaning no sudden flashes of insight that are just true on their own?
Pretty much. For Peirce, every thought, every cognition is determined by previous ones. It's a continuous flow, a chain of reasoning, not isolated intuitive leaps. Truth fits into a system.
It's more like building something block by block rather than just seeing the whole finished structure appear.
That's a good way to put it. It emphasizes the process, the temporality of consciousness.
Okay, what else? There were 4 incapacities.
The third was no power of thinking without signs. This is huge for Peirce. Thinking, for him, is using signs, words, mental images, symbols. There's no pure signless thought underneath it all.
So language isn't just expressing thought, it is the medium of thought itself.
Fundamentally, yes. And fourth, no conception of the absolutely incognizable. If something is truly beyond any possible sign or representation, we can't even form a coherent concept of it. It's outside the limits of meaning.
Kind of echoes Wittgenstein later about the limits of language being the limits of our world.
There's definitely a resonance there. These 4 points really shift the ground away from a purely internal, subjective foundation for knowledge.
So if introspection and intuition are out, or at least limited, how did Peirce explain belief and the process of inquiry? How do we arrive at knowing things?
Well, he tackled this in key essays like The Fixation of Belief and How to Make Our Ideas Clear. He saw belief not just as holding an idea, but as a practical thing, a habit.
A habit? How so?
A habit of action, essentially.
Yeah.
A belief is a disposition to act in certain ways under certain circumstances. It guides our future actions and thoughts. Different beliefs mean different actions.
Okay, so beliefs have real-world consequences built into them.
Exactly. And because doubt is this uncomfortable, itchy state, the whole point of inquiry, of thinking and investigating, is simply to get rid of doubt and arrive at a stable belief, the settlement of opinion.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
We want to resolve that uncertainty. Did he think there were better or worse ways to do that?
Oh, definitely. He outlines 4 main methods people use to fix their beliefs. The first he calls the method of tenacity.
Tenacity. Sounds like just being stubborn.
That's basically it. You just hold on to your belief, come what may, actively avoiding anything that contradicts it. Close your eyes and ears.
We've all seen that, maybe even done it. What's next?
Second is the method of authority. Accepting beliefs because some institution, the state, a church, a tradition tells you to.
That provides social cohesion, I suppose.
But yeah, problems arise when you bump into people with different authorities, different mandated beliefs. It plants seeds of doubt.
Okay. Third method.
The A-Priori Method. This is settling beliefs based on what seems agreeable to reason, what feels intuitively right or logically elegant, independent of experience.
Sounds more philosophical, maybe, like relying on rational principles.
It does, but Peirce thought it was still too subjective. What seems agreeable to reason can change with intellectual fashions or personal inclination. It lacks an external check.
So tenacity, authority, a priori, they all have issues. What was his preferred method?
The fourth one, the scientific method. And this was key for Peirce.
Why was this one better?
Because it's designed, ideally, to let reality itself shape belief over time through experience and testing. Crucially, it's not individualistic. It relies on a community of inquirers.
Ah, the community aspect.
Yes, truth for Peirce is like the stable opinion that this community would eventually agree upon if they carried out inquiry long enough, using methods that are self-correcting based on evidence. The real is what this final opinion would be about.
So it's less about my personal certainty and more about a communal, objective process.
Exactly. It aims to move beyond individual biases and subjective feelings. And this ties directly into his idea of pragmatism.
Right. Peirce is famous for pragmatism. How does that fit in?
It's essentially his theory of meaning linked to that scientific approach. He called it the Pragmatic Maxim, presented as the third highest grade of clarity for our ideas in how to make our ideas clear.
Okay, what is the maxim? Lay it on us.
He put it like this. Consider what effects that might conceivably have practical bearings we conceive the object of our conception to have. Then our conception of these effects is the whole of our conception of the object.
Okay. Break that down a bit. Practical bearings, effects.
It means to understand what any concept or idea means, you need to think about all the possible, observable, practical consequences that would follow if that concept were true. What difference would it make in experience?
So the meaning is the sum of its potential effects.
Yes. Your entire understanding of the concept is wrapped up in those conceivable effects. He used the example of hardness.
Okay, how does that work for hardness?
What does it mean to say a diamond is hard? The pragmatic meaning lies entirely in its conceivable effects. It would scratch glass, it would resist scratching by most other things, and so on. These conditional practical outcomes are the meaning of hard.
Even if we never actually test it, like his diamond and cotton wool example.
Exactly. Even if the diamond is wrapped in cotton and never touches anything, its hardness still consists in the fact that if you were to test it, it would behave in those ways. The meaning lies in those potential interactions.
That's a powerful way to clarify ideas. It forces you to think about tangible results.
And it implies that if two different concepts or beliefs lead to exactly the same set of conceivable practical consequences, then for all meaningful purposes, they are the same concept. There's no difference that makes a difference.
Very, well, pragmatic.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned his work relies on fundamental categories: firstness, secondness, thirdness.
Yes, these are absolutely central to his entire system. He believed these three categories are irreducible and appear everywhere in our experience and thought.
Okay, let's take them one by one. Firstness.
Firstness is the mode of being of sheer quality, possibility, feeling considered in itself without relation to anything else. Think of the raw sensation of redness or a feeling of joy, just as it is, before you analyze it or connect it to anything.
Like pure potential, a
No.
standalone quality.
Exactly. Potentiality, immediacy, freshness. He often used a circle to represent its self-contained nature. It's logically primary.
Okay, then secondness.
Secondness is the mode of being of reaction, brute fact, otherness. It's about interaction, resistance, one thing standing over against another. The experience of effort, surprise, difference. Two things in opposition.
Like hitting a wall, or cause and effect in a direct physical way.
Precisely. It's dyadic, involving two things. The brute actuality of the world impinging on us. He used a rectangle, suggesting division or opposition.
And that leaves thirdness.
Thirdness is the mode of being of mediation, connection, representation, law, habit, thought. It's what brings a first, a quality or possibility, into relation with a second, an event or reaction through some rule or sign.
So it requires three elements.
Always. Think of a sign. It connects an object, second, with an interpretant or meaning, which involves firstness, a quality of understanding through the sign itself. Third, it's about continuity, generality, making connections. A triangle is a good symbol here.
Firstness, possibility.
Yeah.
Secondness, actuality, reaction. Thirdness, mediation, law. And these apply broadly.
Peirce saw them everywhere, in logic, metaphysics, psychology, and crucially in his theory of signs, semiotics.
Right, let's dive into that. He saw signs everywhere, didn't he?
He famously said the universe is perfused with signs. Semiotics, the study of signs, was absolutely core for him. And for Peirce, a sign is fundamentally triadic.
Back to thirdness again.
Exactly. A sign isn't just A stands for B, it involves three things. The sign itself, he called it the representamen.
Okay, the thing doing the representing.
The object, which is what the sign refers to.
What it's about.
And the interpretant. This is the crucial third part, the effect the sign creates in the mind or quasi-mind of the interpreter. And importantly, the interpretant is itself another sign.
Ah, so the meaning created is also a sign, leading potentially to more meaning.
Precisely. It's a potentially infinite process he called semiosis, meaning unfolds. A traffic light, sign, refers to stopping object and creates an understanding or action in you, interpretant, which might then lead to further thoughts or signs in your mind.
So it's not the sign's inherent qualities, but this three-way relationship that makes it a sign.
Yes, semiosis is this mediated action. It's not just physical cause-effect. And from these three elements, the sign itself, its relation to the object, its relation to the interpretant, Peirce developed a complex system of different types of signs. Icons, indices, symbols are just the most famous ones.
Wow, okay. So for a dynamic view of meaning. What about his ideas like Tychism and Synechism, chance and continuity?
Right. Tychism is Peirce's belief in real, objective chance indeterminacy operating in the universe. It's not just about our ignorance. He thought spontaneity is a genuine cosmic factor.
So the universe isn't purely deterministic. There's genuine novelty possible.
That's the idea. It allows for growth, evolution, variety. It connects to the spontaneity of thought, too. And then Synechism is the complementary principle, a belief in the importance and reality of continuity.
Continuity? How so?
A tendency towards connection, generality, lawfulness, mediation, thirdness again. He saw reality as tending towards becoming more continuous, more governed by habits and laws, even suggesting that life, bios and signs, semiosis, might be part of one continuous process.
Chance provides the variation. Continuity provides the structure or habit.
You could see it that way, yes. A dynamic interplay. Tychism represents the initial field of almost infinite possibility, which then gets shaped and narrowed down by habit and law, Synechism and thirdness.
This seems to link back to the community aspect you mentioned earlier, continuity, connection.
Absolutely. His view of inquiry is deeply communitarian. Achieving truth isn't a solo mission. It requires a community committed to certain values. Openness, humility, collaboration, even a kind of intellectual love for the process itself.
So the scientific method isn't just a procedure, it's an ethos.
Very much so. Truth is this ideal limit, this horizon that the community approaches over time. No single person possesses it fully. We get closer through shared investigation and critical discussion.
And understanding someone else's ideas requires actively engaging with them.
Peirce really emphasized that to truly understand, you have to think it through for yourself, become an active participant in the inquiry, not just a passive receiver.
It's a very demanding but also optimistic view of knowledge seeking.
It is. And his ideas have legs. Semiotics is huge in many fields. Biosemiotics tries to apply his sign theory to life itself. Some physicists, like Lee Smolin, have found resonance with his ideas about evolving laws and cosmology.
And maybe even AI, the problem of grounding symbols in reality.
Exactly. How does an AI connect red to the actual experience or function of red? Peirce's ideas about signs, objects, and interpretants grounded in experience seem very relevant there. He had this underlying faith that reality will ultimately assert itself through experience, forcing our beliefs to converge over the long run.
So wrapping this up, Peirce gives us this incredibly rich picture, knowledge, belief, reality itself are all tied up with practical consequences, community, and this fundamental nature of signs.
Yeah, it's a system that challenges easy certainty, but offers a path for inquiry based on experience, logic, and collaboration. He really pushes you to think about how you think and why you believe what you believe.
A constant process of refinement, driven by doubt and interaction.
That's a great summary. It's an ongoing deep dive, really.
So, for you listening, here's a thought to take away. How does Peirce's insistence on practical consequences in community challenge your own sense of certainty? In your work, in your life, what does it mean to really know something if we take Peirce seriously? Maybe exploring his essays on fixing belief could be your next step.
It's definitely worth the read.
Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.